Hi everyone, Heather here with astrologywithheather.com, and I am back with another weekly forecast. And this one is for Monday, March 16th, all the way through to Sunday, March 22nd of 2020. And this is a powerful week in the astrology. We have Mars, which has been transiting the sign of Capricorn since the middle of February and hitting this huge stellium of planets, the outer planets in the south node that have been transiting Capricorn for quite some time. And this has been causing a little bit of a ruckus in a lot of our lives, and also most obviously on a global scale. And so this week things are heating up a little bit. And so we're definitely going to get into what that looks like and how that's going to play out on an individual level and how to navigate that energy most effectively. The other thing that's going to be happening is that Saturn is going to be finally shifting out of the sign of Capricorn and moving into Aquarius for the very first time. And this is a transit that's going to last about 2.5 to 3 years, where Saturn's going to be adding some pressure and additional challenge in a different area of our lives, while also, providing a little bit of a release or a relief because Saturn's moving on from that Capricorn placement. And so we're going to feel a little bit of like a breath of fresh air, not necessarily this week, but into the coming weeks in that Capricorn area. And we'll start to get the taste of the challenges that we're going to be facing moving forward with that Saturn transit through the sign of Aquarius. And so because this Saturn transit through Aquarius is such a long-term, such a significant aspect and transit and placement that's going to be impacting us for quite some time, I'm actually going to release a separate video where I focus just on that Saturn Aquarius transit, hopefully sometime next week. We will touch on that in this week's forecast, of course, because it's an important part of the week, but I'm going to leave the bigger details for that extended forecast just because it's a lot to cover in this weekly forecast. And so keep an eye out for that. Hopefully, like I said, next week I'm planning for it, but there are a lot of projects and things that I'm working on right now. So I don't have an exact date for you guys just yet. And so basically what we're going to be getting into this week are the most pressing aspects, the things that are going to be really heating things up and causing people to kind of go to extremes. And before we get into that, and sort of on that note, I do actually want to just very briefly address the elephant in the room, which is the coronavirus outbreak. And how this energy might be impacting what we're going to be seeing on a global scale. Now, this is something I don't do very often, especially in my weekly forecast. These are focused on you. These are focused on individual personalized astrology. And I'm not a mundane astrologer, although sometimes I do meet up with other astrologers like Robert Phoenix, and we discuss what's going on more on a global scale. But I felt like it was worth mentioning, not because I want to add to the focus and the, mass hysteria, but because hopefully I can give you guys a little bit of information about what's going on and when it's likely to calm down to maybe mitigate some of that mass hysteria, because it seems like this week the panic and sort of overreaction to such things is going to reach a new level. And so I just want people to understand that that's really what's going on here. I don't see anything to be worried about in terms of mass death or something that's actually going to bring physical harm to people. What I'm seeing here in the astrology on a personal level and on this global scale is a massive, very intense sort of increase in fear and in overreaction, overdoing things, taking things to extremes to the point where it's like just completely overkill and completely unnecessary. And so you'll see a lot more of that in the media this week. We already know that's coming because we're already starting to see that. People are starting to panic. People are starting to do completely ridiculous things. And, there is a bit of an overreaction or a hyper response going on to this perceived threat. And so I'm sure I'll get plenty of, fun comments in the comment section for saying things like that. But I really think that there's not a danger here in a physical sense, I think the danger here has to do with like inciting mass fear and the fears and anxieties that we already have around this topic. If some of you are holding on to fears and anxieties around this topic, being exacerbated. But it doesn't have to be this way. There is a lot of really productive, positive energy that you can utilize this for this week. It's just a matter of maintaining a level head, keeping your calm, and not doing things in excess, not reacting to things in excess. And that goes for everybody on an individual level, but also, in terms of what we're seeing on a global scale, this is going to be potentially a mass overreaction and a lot of overkill when it comes to the hysteria. And of course, we're already seeing that. So I just wanted to kind of make note that things are probably going to heat up this week on that level. Coming into next week, we also have a new moon in the sign of Aries in a conjunction with Chiron. Not the worst energy out of all of this, but I think it's not necessarily going to help anything. The following week, we have actually the Mars conjunction to Saturn on March 31st, and then Jupiter and Pluto will come into their first exact conjunction on April 4th. After that time, I really truly believe that things will calm down on a global scale around this coronavirus outbreak and the panic that is being incited within the mainstream media, and just kind of in general, people are getting themselves in a panic, like over responding to things that are not necessarily a threat in the here and now. And I really and truly believe that by the middle of April, things will start to calm down quite a bit. But the next couple of weeks are the weeks to watch, and this week in particular is a week to watch in the astrology. And so I did want to just address that because I feel like it's almost like weird not to, just because of the things that are going on and the way that people are responding to these things and the way that that translates to this week's astrology and how that's going to be impacting all of us, really. And so hopefully that's okay that I was talking about this. I don't think, again, that this is something that is going to pose like an actual imminent danger to anyone. And I think that the danger is in our heads. I think the danger is in the reactions that we're going to see from people. And, I think that we can mitigate that quite easily in our own lives and in our own experience. And hopefully that'll have some sort of reverberation and will impact things in a positive manner around us. And so just kind of keep that in mind as we go through this week. All right, and so I am going to get into the astrology forecast now for all 12 signs, beginning with the sign of Aries. And I just wanted to mention that these aspects that we're going to be discussing here, the Mars conjunction to Jupiter, that's going to happen on Friday, and then the conjunction to Pluto, which is highlighting the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction that's occurring in about a week and a half from now. That's going to come exact on Sunday, and right in between that period of time, we have Saturn moving into Aquarius. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the big days, but we're really going to be feeling this all this week and all the way into next week and even into the following week. This is like a big, long, stretched out energy with a lot of intensity, but also, again, a lot of potential for channeling this into something super, super meaningful. This is a great time where we can really buckle down and focus our energy on pushing forward with something that can impact us in big ways that we might not even realize, and that can impact us really quickly in ways that we might not even realize. And so that's going to be a lot of what we're talking about. All right, and so we're going to get into the forecast now for all 12 signs, beginning with the sign of Aries. And before we do, I only have really one announcement. It's nothing like imminent, but I am going to be, I should say that I'm not going to be releasing this, but I just finished recording a whole series about astrology called Astrology 101, which is going to be featured on Ickonic Alternative Media Network, and I believe it's going to be released on May 8th. And so keep an eye out for that. You guys guys, once the trailer's up in the next week or two, I'm going to share that with you. And I will post a link below to the Ickonic Media Network for those of you who wish to subscribe, so you can keep up with, what I'm doing and watch that series, but also so you can view the content on the channel, because it's super, super interesting stuff. A lot of really unique content that's very eye-opening that you can go on and sort of binge watch if that's something that you're into doing. And you can actually learn something from it. So that's, the benefit of that. So I'll post that information down below as well. All right, so let's get into the forecast for all 12 zodiac signs, beginning with the sign of Aries. And so for Aries and for Aries rising, the big thing that's happening this week that's going to be impacting us, in this moment, is the Mars conjunction to Saturn or to Pluto. I should say, not Saturn and Pluto. I'm used to Saturn and Pluto being together. Saturn's starting to move away as we're talking about this week, but Mars is coming into that conjunction with Jupiter and with Pluto. And so the Mars conjunction to Jupiter and Pluto is going to be impacting Aries very, very strongly, because this is happening in one of your angular houses. And so it's going to take on an additional significance and prominence for you this week. This is a time where it's you might have an energy around overreacting or becoming just very reactionary and kind of over the top in your expression when it comes to work and work-related issues. This could be a time where you push a little bit too hard when it comes to your work, where you try to go too hard, too fast to get some sort of project done, or to initiate something that you feel is really important with your work. Or maybe it could even be that there's an issue going on in the workplace and there's an extreme overreaction to that issue, either on your end or on the end of your bosses or your superiors. If that's the case, take a step back, keep a level head, and figure out how you can focus your energy and attention on remedying this situation. Again, though, there is an energy here where there's a danger of going too far and maybe burning yourself out, or, pushing people out of the way or stepping on their toes just to sort of get ahead or to get to the thing that you're trying to accomplish or to get it finished or completed in some way. And so again, you just want to make sure that you're keeping a level head, that you realize that it doesn't all have to happen right now, but this is a really powerful time to initiate something or to push something forward where, things could escalate or happen quite quickly. And so if you do have a way of channeling this very positively, if there's something that feels really good to you and that will be successful and that you need to accomplish when it comes to your work, your career, or career-related projects, now's the time where you can do that, where you're going to have so much momentum and so much focus. And there is positive potential here because Jupiter is involved, right? And so even if you do push things a little too far, even if it is a little bit overkill and you burn yourself out, the end results of whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish are most likely to be positive. Saturn's actually going to be moving into the sign of Aquarius, and we're going to discuss this in the extended forecast that I'm going to be doing next week. So check back sometime next week on my channel. Make sure you're subscribed so you can watch that when it does come out. But the one thing that you will potentially notice this week is that Saturn's going to start to give you a taste of the challenges, limitations, restrictions, lessons that you need to learn over the next 2.5 to 3 years around your friendships, your social networks, the people you surround yourself with by choice. And so this is going to be a period where you're going to have to really take stock of who you want to take with you in terms of friendship for the next 30-year cycle of Saturn. This is where you're going to really solidify those good, solid relationships, and where you're going to start working on letting go of relationships and friendships that no longer serve you and that are maybe not loyal, long-lasting, that type of thing. All right, and for Taurus rising. So this energy here with Mars, Pluto, and Jupiter is occurring in your 9th house. And so for Taurus, this is actually going to be a more positive energy than anything else, especially if you're a Taurus rising sun or moon with your rising sun or moon sign at the end degrees of the sign of Taurus. So really anywhere from 25 to 30 degrees, you'll be feeling this very strongly and in a very positive way. This is a a week, and especially into the weekend, where you're going to feel very heavily motivated to act on your integrity, to act in favor of what you truly and deeply believe, to align yourself with what you truly and wholeheartedly believe and know to be the truth. And so this is where you can push forward with something, a really important project, a really important activity that is very much in alignment with your integrity. This is going to be a week where you feel super empowered to do something of great importance. And whatever it is that you wish to do, so long as it's in alignment with what you believe to be valuable, with what you believe to be ethical, with what you believe to be right and to be true, it's very likely to be successful. This could also be some sort of, intense situation around travel or travel plans that might come up for you this week. Even if it seems like there's an overreaction going on, or something's a little bit overkill, or it seems a little bit intense in the moment, whatever occurs in that area is likely to be to your benefit. And so just kind of keep that in mind while you're in the moment, and keep a calm, level head, because after you're outside of the situation, it's going to make more sense, and you'll see that there's, another side to these types of things. For the Saturn transit into the sign of Aquarius, you'll hear a lot more about this in my extended forecast for Saturn in Aquarius, which I'll be releasing next week. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss that. But for Saturn, just dipping its toes into Aquarius, which starts this week, this is where you're going to start to get a taste of the challenges, limitations, restrictions, lessons that you're going to have to learn around your career and your public reputation. Over the next 2.5 to 3 years, you're going to be working really, really hard to restructure and to set yourself up for success in your career for the next 30-year cycle of Saturn. So this is a very important time where you're going to have to buckle down and put in a lot of effort around that theme of career and your work out in the world. All right, and for Gemini rising, this energy with the Pluto, Jupiter, Mars conjunction that's going to be coming exact into this weekend is happening in your 8th house. The 8th house is the house of, first off, debt, taxes, investments, other people's money that you get not through your own hard work, but through other outside sources. And so this could bring about some sort of perceived crisis around a partner's resources, around some sort of investment. There could be a lot of intensity around taxes. It's tax season here in the United States. And so maybe you're feeling a lot of pressure to buckle down and get your ducks in a row in order to be prepared for that tax season. Or maybe there's something that comes up that you didn't realize was an issue, and you have to address it, and it seems really pressing and really intense. Whatever's coming up for you this week financially, definitely don't let fear take hold of you. Don't let that fear get the better of you if there is an intense situation, because there is a danger here of really overreacting. And that overreaction is going to be based on past difficult experiences around finances and past fears around money and money-related circumstances, as opposed to what's going on in the present moment. So taking a step back and looking at where that fear, where that reaction that you're experiencing is coming from, that's going to be a key component to navigating this energy really, really effectively this week. This could also just be an energy of bringing up deep-seated fears, wounds, traumas, anxieties that you've been holding on to on that psychological level, just in a general way. And so you might find fears are creeping up and you're not really sure where they're coming from, but it could feel quite intense. There could be triggering situations in your life that bring up past experiences that maybe you had forgotten about or thought that you were over, and it comes back up right now. This is an incredible opportunity for you to really focus your energy and attention on getting to the bottom of those fears, getting to the bottoms of those issues, so you can bring them up and transform them into something more useful and productive moving forward, so you can release that fear, so you can become empowered. And this could actually be a very empowering week for Gemini risings. And then for that Saturn energy, so Saturn's about to be moving into the sign of Aquarius this week, where it's going to be kind of moving in and out, but it'll be there for the next 2.5 to 3 years. And so I will discuss this in much greater detail in my extended forecast on Saturn and Aquarius later in the week, but so make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss that. But in the meantime, this is going to start kind of giving you a preview this weekend as to what it is that you might be experiencing into the future regarding new challenges, new maybe repressive energies, new hardships that you might have to face, or new responsibilities that you might have to take on related to things like higher educational pursuits, travel plans, especially traveling for work could be a big theme, or restrictions on your ability to travel because you're working on something really important. This is essentially going to be also a restructuring of your belief system about God, the universe, the world around you, where you're going to be working really hard to get in touch with what's real, what's true for you, and ways in which you can utilize that in a practical way in your everyday life in order to navigate your experience more effectively. All right. And for Cancer rising. So for the Cancer rising people, there's going to be a Mars, Jupiter, Pluto conjunction in your 7th house, which is the house of relationships, especially close personal relationships and partnership and marriage. And so this is a week where things could get a little heated when it comes to your relationships. You might overreact to something that your spouse or your partner does and take things way over the top. You might succumb to fears or anxieties around losing a partner, around partnership in general. Just know that whatever's coming up for you in partnership, if there is a disruption, if there is a dispute, there could be overreaction going on both ends, but especially, with you and your partner, there could be like something that comes up and you feel like you have to address it right now, and it brings up a lot of fear, it brings up a lot of intensity. Now's a time where you have to make sure that you're taking a step back and keeping a level head and looking at where is this reactionary energy coming from? Where are these fears actually residing? Are they related to what's going on in the present moment, or are they related to some issue in the past that you thought that you've worked through, but maybe you haven't fully overcome just yet? And so kind of keeping that in mind and stepping out of the situation if things do get intense is going to be very useful. This is also a week, though, where you can push forward with something really important related to some sort of partnership or contract or agreement where it might seem really pressing, and maybe it is. Just make sure you don't overdo it or rush into it. But if you really focus your energy and attention on something really important in partnership with somebody else as a team, you can accomplish so many incredible things this week. And so that's a really great way to utilize this energy for Cancer risings, especially those Cancer rising signs who have their rising degree anywhere from 25 to 30 degrees at the end degrees of Cancer. With that Saturn energy, Saturn for you guys is about to be shifting into Aquarius, and it'll be spending the next 2.5 to 3 years in your 8th house. And this is something that we'll get into much more detail with next week in my extended forecast for Saturn and Aquarius. So make sure that you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss that. But in the meantime, just so you guys have a heads up for what's coming this weekend, this is going to be you sort of getting a preview of the just very beginnings of what's about to come up for you related to that Saturn in the 8th house energy. And so this is going to give you a glimpse into the restructuring that you're going to have to do, the new responsibilities that you're going to have to take on, any restrictive or oppressive energies you're going to have to be dealing with in that 8th house, which is related to joint finances or investments or inheritance or joint finances through marriage. There could be restrictions on maybe your partner's resources. And so you have to figure out how to restructure your finances in order to mitigate that or to deal with that. This could just simply be a time where you realize that you have to buckle down and get your ducks in a row, pay off your debt so you can be much more empowered and financially free. And so these types of things might come up. This is also where if you haven't addressed any of your psychological patterns and issues that are controlling you from the inside out via fear or past trauma, this is a time where you're going to have to put in the work and do it yourself in order to really overcome these types of issues. And so those are some of the themes that'll start to come up. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more next week. All right. And then for Leo and for Leo rising, this energy with this Mars conjunction to Jupiter and Pluto is happening in your 6th house, which is the house of work, health, and daily routines. And for Leos in particular, there could be some sort of intense experience this week that disrupts your ability to work in the same normal day-to-day fashion that you do, and it could feel quite intense. There could be an intense situation, maybe a disruption or a dispute in the workplace that really takes center stage and demands your attention. And so you're not able to kind of go with your normal flow. This could also simply be you really wanting to push forward and work really hard on some important work-related issue or project where it's almost to where you're going to extremes to get things accomplished and to get things done. This is where, for Leos in particular, you're going to have the danger of burning yourself out this week and really overdoing it. Understand that this is not a race that you don't necessarily have to rush. This is a powerful time to initiate something. This is a powerful time where you might have the energy and motivation to get things done. But if you overdo it, you're going to burn yourself out, and then you might succumb to some sort of illness, or you might have to take a break. And this energy here with Pluto and Jupiter is going to be lasting for a few weeks, so you still have that momentum. It doesn't have to happen right now, even if you feel like it does. And so just make sure that you're pacing yourself and not overreacting to these things. And if you do find yourself feeling a little down or feeling sick in some way or having to deal with some sort of illness, again, there can be this overreaction to it where it's like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. I don't want to stop. I don't want to, take time off because I'm really, really motivated and I feel like I have to push forward. Well, if that is the case, take a step back and try to view things a little bit more from a different perspective, because again, these things don't all have to happen right now. And whatever it is that you think is happening might not be as bad as you think it is. And so again, keeping your mind in check and just making sure that your reaction to the situation is not just black and white, and it's not to some sort of extreme, and that it's realistic to the situation that is happening right now and not based on, past fears or even current fears that are out of proportion to the situation. The other thing that's going on is Saturn is actually going to be moving into the 7th house. And so this is something that we'll discuss in greater detail later this week in my extended forecast for Saturn transiting through Aquarius. And so make sure that you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss that. But Saturn will be moving into Aquarius this weekend, so I want to give you a heads up as to what you're going to be getting a taste of. And so really this is going to be a sneak preview or a little bit of just you starting to understand the energy that's going to be present during this 2.5 to 3 year transit of Saturn and Aquarius. And so this is going to be showing you where you need to put in some extra effort, where you have to put in some extra work in your current relationships that you want to hold on to, where you might need to restructure or take on additional responsibility in your relationships, and which relationships, especially those close personal one-on-one relationships, are beneficial to you and that you want to lock in and solidify and create a better foundation for the next 30-year cycle of Saturn, and which ones you might want to start working on letting go of. And that's going to be the main energy for Saturn and Aquarius. All right, and then for Virgo and for Virgo rising. So this Mars-Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is happening in your 5th house, and so this is actually going to be a more positive energy for Virgos, just like it was for Taurus, 2 of the earth signs here who are going to have an easier time with this energy, or at least a better handle on it, so that way you can use it more productively and proactively as opposed to some of the other signs. And so this Mars conjunction to Jupiter and Pluto is going to cause you to want to really jump in. You're going to feel obsessed with doing something that you are deeply, deeply passionate about. And especially if you are a Virgo rising sun or moon with your rising sun or moon sign near the end degrees of Virgo, near 25 to 30 degrees, you're going to be feeling this really intensely in a very empowering and very positive way. You're going to feel very energized, very motivated. You're going to be going and accomplishing a lot this week. This is a week where anything that you want to focus a lot of your energy on, where you want to initiate something or move forward with something, if you want to just jump in head first to something that you feel deeply, deeply passionate about, this is a week where you can do that much more easily, and you can be empowered to actually succeed for the long haul. And this is really an energy too where there could be some sort of intense situation that comes up around children, or, maybe power struggles or arguments or disputes around children, something along those lines where there could be a little bit of an overreaction. And so that is the one kind of drawback to this energy. But I think for Virgos in particular, you're going to be able to navigate this very effectively if that does happen, to keep your calm and to understand what's really going on here. But this is a great week for you to feel motivated to jump into something even physically that you've been wanting to do, like something that's going to be beneficial for your body, because this might be in trine with your ascendant, which rules the physical body. And so it's a great week to feel motivated, to feel empowered, and to, to actually really push into something that you've been feeling excited about or working toward for quite some time. That Saturn energy, with Saturn moving into the 6th house, is going to, get started this weekend. This is something that I'm going to discuss in much greater detail in my extended forecast for Saturn and Aquarius, which should be released sometime next week. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss that. But just to give you an idea of what you're going to start to experience this weekend, Saturn's moving into your 6th house, and that's where it's going to remain for about the next 2.5 years. And throughout this time period, with this very beginning phase of Saturn just dipping its toes into Aquarius, you're going to start to understand the challenges and the work that you're going to have to put in the 6th house, which has to do with your health and your daily routines. This could be, a wake-up call that maybe you want to get your ducks in a row when it comes to your health routines. Maybe you want to work harder to get healthy, to have proper nutrition, to have a better diet, to be more regimented in that area, which is something that Virgo rising people, they need a little bit of excitement, and they're always kind of looking to this and that and the other thing, and jumping around to different healing modalities with that Aquarius 6th house placement. This is a time where you might want to lock into something and get really disciplined with your health. This is also where you are probably going to want to get more disciplined with your work and daily routines, and you might feel a lot more pressure at work in your day-to-day work experience. And so again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later this week. All right, and for Libra rising, this Mars Pluto Jupiter conjunction is coming to this culmination point, this really intense peak in your 4th house, which is the house of home and family and your property. And so this is a week where things might be heating up in your home. You might have something really pressing involving an important family dynamic, or an important dynamic related to a property that you rent or own, or your own home in and of itself, where all of a sudden something happens and you feel like it's a catastrophe, and you feel like you have to address it or over address it. It's like overkill. And so just kind of keeping in mind the fact that there is going to be a tendency to overreact and to become hyper responsive to the situation based on past experiences, past fears, past traumas, or things that are out of proportion to what's really going on, is going to be crucial to navigating this energy, especially if you're a Libra rising with your rising sign anywhere from 23 to 30 degrees. It's going to feel like an intense challenge, and this might even involve family dynamics and family relationships where there could be arguments or disputes, or there could be arguments or disputes around contracts or agreements related to your home or property, that it feels really intense, like you have to address this and get on top of this right now and go on the defensive. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's accurate to the situation, and there's going to be actually plenty of time over the next few weeks for you to work on this energy and to address these issues. And so just kind of keeping a level head about this, but there could be something that you want to really push into or initiate in your home, or related to your property, or related to an important issue with your family. And now's a time where you can have the motivation and the energy to do so, as long as you're not taking it too far. The other thing that's going on is that Saturn's going to be moving from the 4th house and into your 5th house. And so this is something that we're going to discuss in greater detail in my extended forecast for Saturn and Aquarius, which will be released next week. So make sure that you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss that. But in the meantime, just to give you a taste of what's coming up for you, this Saturn energy in the 5th house is going to start to reveal itself in terms of the way that things are going to play out for you over the next 2.5 years or so, with Saturn transiting the sign of Aquarius. And so this is going to potentially bring up some challenges limitations, restrictions, hard work and effort that you have to put in the 5th house, which is the house that relates to children. It's the house that relates to your hobbies, the interests, the things that you do because you love to do them. And it's the house that relates to romance. And so one of the most common things that I hear with Saturn in the 5th house for people is that romance feels like a lot more work at this time. This could also be where you want to get serious about your relationships and partnerships, and you're not going to settle for something that's just a fling. This could also be where you want to take your hobbies, interests, in your passions and channel that into something more productive, maybe turning it into a business. Usually for the 5th house transit, this is going to be a strengthening transit for you. That's going to improve your resilience and determination for the long term. And so we'll talk about this a little bit more in that extended forecast. All right, and for Scorpio rising. So this energy with Scorpio rising is going to be occurring in the 3rd house, which is the house of communication. It's the house of marketing. It's the house of writing. It's the house of short distance travel and your daily commute. And so there could be some sort of intense situation that comes up via some sort of unexpected communication where it feels very pressing. It feels like you have to put it out there. You have to address it right now. And you have to really get your ducks in a row when it comes to responding or reacting to some sort of message that comes through to you this week. Luckily, this is actually going to be a more positive energy for Scorpios than for some of the other signs, especially if you're a Scorpio rising with your rising sign near those end degrees of Scorpio, so anywhere from 25 to 30 degrees. This is a transit where you've been working really hard on getting your ducks in a row when it comes to educational pursuits, or maybe a writing pursuit of some kind, or maybe becoming a teacher or learning how to speak more eloquently out in public, or learning how to market your business or something along those lines. And this is where you can very quickly manifest a lot and start to see some very rapid results in regards to those efforts that you've been putting in that 3rd house area. There could also be something really pressing that you have to address pretty immediately involving a vehicle or some sort of short distance travel that comes up where you have to get up and go. And that usually for Scorpio risings, for the most part, this seems like something that will be more positive than anything else, or that will have some sort of positive result. And so it's kind of like, okay, I have to go and I have to take this trip, but there's a benefit to this, and it's really intense for me to have to go and do this, but I can see how this is going to help things in the future, or how this is going to have, repercussions that might improve your relationships or improve your life or your well-being in some way. And so this is going to be a time where you're going to feel like you really want to push when it comes to your mental energy, and you could feel more reactionary and more defensive and more fearful on that mental plane. And so just be aware of that. And so if somebody comes at you with a message and you feel like you want to react and just yell at them or say something nasty, or you feel like you need to go on the defensive, just kind of check yourself and just see where that's coming from, right? Is that response based on what's actually going on? Do you know the whole situation? Or are you reacting out of fear? Or is this sort of like a knee-jerk reaction based on some sort of past experience that's maybe not related to what's going on right now? And so keep that in mind for those Scorpios. Saturn is about to dip into your 4th house, where it's going to remain for the next 2.5 years. And so this is something that we're going to discuss in greater detail in my extended forecast on Saturn and Aquarius, hopefully sometime next week. And so if you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe so you can be notified when that comes out and have a more in-depth understanding of the Saturn transit through Aquarius. But for right now, just to give you a taste of what's to come, because that's what Saturn's doing, Saturn's giving you a taste of what's to come. Saturn's moving into Aquarius, and it's entering into your 4th house, which is the house of home, family, property. And so now's a time where you might feel an extra burden of limitation or restriction or oppressive energy related to your home or your home environment, related to your place of living in some way. This could be a great time to, work hard on creating a better living situation for yourself, or to create better stability in your home environment by planning on, maybe taking on home ownership or something along those lines. This could be a time where a period where your time related to your family becomes limited or restricted in some way. So you're not able to engage with your family as much, and that could be part of that restrictive energy. But there's going to be an extra burden that you're going to be carrying related to home and family, and a restructuring that's going to need to happen, and some challenges that you're going to need to face over these next couple of years, the end results of which will set you up for success in that area over the next 30-year cycle of Saturn. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more in that extended forecast next week. All right. And then for Sagittarius and for Sagittarius rising. So this energy with this Mars, Jupiter, Pluto conjunction is happening in your second house, which is the house of finances. And so there's something that you've been working on really restructuring and letting go of related to your finances, and the way that you create resources or the way that you handle your money. And this is going to be that final test, that final push where there could be some sort of extreme measures that you have to take or that you feel like you have to take to remedy some sort of financial disruption or situation in your life. This could also be a lot of pressure around your work or around finances or the way that you create your resources through your work. That could come up this week where things become intensified in some way and you have to deal with that. And if there is some sort of fear or some sort of disruption or something that needs your immediate attention that requires you to spend a lot of money, just know that that's okay. And that these things are not going to be quite as extreme or as intense as they might seem in the moment. And so just kind of take a step back and look at what's really happening, like in terms of the reality of the situation. Don't just jump in and react all willy-nilly. Make sure that you're thinking things through, responding, and that you're not kind of going to extremes with everything. And just understand that, these things will start to resolve and start to lighten up a little bit after the next couple of weeks. And you don't have to address it and do it all right this second, because there is going to be plenty of time with this Pluto-Jupiter energy to make these things happen and to get things going. And so if that's the case for you, just kind of keep that in mind and check yourself and make sure that you're not reacting or responding from a place of fear or past trauma or past experience, and that what you're, the way you're viewing the situation is actually related to what's going on in reality. And this is a time, though, if you wanted to really push forward with something, if you wanted to start something new, you have this really intense energy where you can really focus on manifesting what you want financially. And so that could be part of this too. Again, not overdoing it, that's the key, but you could have a lot of momentum here to clean up your act financially, or to, make an important investment, or to do something with your finances that you've been really needing or wanting to do. And so, keep that in mind as well, because there is a positive potential there. With Saturn moving into Aquarius, this is going to be giving you a taste of the next 2.5 years and what's going to be coming up for you. And so I'm going to, of course, be doing that extended forecast that I've been mentioning later this week about Saturn and Aquarius. So we'll get into this a lot more in depth then. And so make sure that you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss that. But in the meantime, that Saturn transit through the third house, just to give you a taste of what's coming up, is going to give you a taste of what's coming up for the next 2.5 years with Saturn transiting that third house energy. The third house is the house of education. It's the house of writing. It's the house of marketing. It's the house of short distance travel. It's the house of community. It's the house of siblings and extended family members. And so you could have an extra burden that's placed on you in any of those areas, topics or themes. So maybe you have to think about going back to school and working hard to get additional education. Maybe your commute becomes more burdensome, or it's restricted in some way. Maybe you have issues with vehicles and travel that come up. Maybe, you have to work on your relationship with your siblings and extended family members. Maybe you have to work really hard on a new marketing plan or a marketing strategy for your business. A lot of these things could be potentials for you. So this is going to give you a taste of what's coming up so you can see what it is that you're going to be working on moving forward. All right. And then for Capricorn and for Capricorn rising, this energy here with Mars, Pluto, and Jupiter in a really intense conjunction is happening in your sign. And so this isn't something to get, overly concerned about, but at the same time, this is going to place a lot of pressure on you. You're going to be feeling super energized and super motivated and super pressured to do something big or extreme or important this week. And you might take it a little bit too far. And so this is an energy where you're going to be way more prone to overdoing everything that you do, overreacting to everything that comes your way, because you're going to be hyper vigilant and hyper responsive to things. And you're going to be way more likely to view the world and your experiences through this lens of extremes, where it feels like you have to go on the defense, or where it feels like you have to take immediate action in the here and now. And for some of you, that might be the case to a certain extent, but for others, it might be overkill, and it might cause you to get burnt out, or to hurt somebody, or to push forward with something too intensely, too quickly, that's not quite ripe or ready for you to be moving forward with. And so just make sure that you're taking your time, thinking things through. And if there is a situation that feels really pressing this week, make sure that you are responding to that situation appropriately and not kind of overdoing it or responding based on fear or anxiety or something along those lines. If you do have something that you really, really need to get done and it's been weighing on you and you've just been feeling like you're like moving through sludge and it's not working and you're not able to get any headway, this is a week where you can actually push forward and you can actually make some sort of accomplishment happen pretty rapidly with this energy. But again, make sure that you don't overdo it. You don't want to burn yourself out, because that's the danger here. And then moving on to the Saturn transit into the second house. And so Saturn's going to be moving into your second house, where it's going to be transiting for about 2.5 years or so. And I will, of course, get into this in greater detail in my extended forecast for Saturn and Aquarius, which should be released sometime next week. So if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please do, so that way you'll be notified when it is available. But in the meantime, just to give you a taste of what's coming up and what this energy entails, Saturn transiting through the second house is going to cause an energy of restructuring and extra responsibility and potentially extra burden in the area of finances. And so it could be that you realize that you have to work really hard to save for a really important expense. It could be that your finances are restricted or limited in some way. It could be that you're working really hard to pay off debts or something along those lines. And so it's going to be an energy where usually people have to work a little bit harder in their relationship to finances. You might have to work on creating a better budget for the future, or there could be a very literal restriction on your finances, but that's not always the case. A lot of times the restriction is that you're funneling your money into something that's very responsible and not as fun. And so that's where your money's kind of going during this time. All right. And then that Aquarius rising. So for Aquarius rising, this Mars-Pluto, Jupiter conjunction is happening in your 12th house, which is the house of seclusion, solitude, restriction, solitude, seclusion, rest and relaxation, I should say. The restriction is the Saturn energy that's coming in this week. And so this is a week where you might feel a really intense pull to go inward, or you might have something really extreme or something that is sort of intense that comes up that forces you to take time away from the busyness of everyday life, from the busyness of going out into the world. Maybe you decide to stay home for a few days. Maybe, something comes up where you're able to take a vacation or take a break, and it comes up really quickly, and you have to kind of take hold of that energy and jump on that while that energy is present in your life. And so you decide, I'm going to take this time. I'm going to spend time at home. I'm going to spend time on my own. I'm going to go on some sort of retreat, or I'm going to take some time to turn inward, because I feel like this is what's needed right now. I need a break. I need a rest. And it's going to feel like almost intense in this pull to like rest and break free. And so that's going to be part of this energy for Aquarius. This could be an energy where sometimes with Mars, there could be a feeling like somebody's working behind the scenes against you, or you're being attacked from like something, behind the veil, behind the scenes, that you're not really sure where that's coming from. If that is the case, don't let fear get the better of you. It's probably not as bad as it seems, or the thing that you think is happening might not be that exact thing. And so this is an energy where there could be some fears coming from a subconscious level, and you're not really sure where that's coming from. And so just sit with that, meditate on it, right? Reflect on it, and make sure that you understand where that's coming from before you react to any of that energy. And then Saturn, of course, is going to be moving into your sign, the sign of Aquarius, where it's going to remain for the next 2.5 years or so. And so with Saturn and Aquarius, I'm going to discuss this in much greater detail in my extended forecast for Saturn and Aquarius later this week, or into next week, I should say. And so if you're not subscribed to my channel already, make sure that you do, so that way you'll be notified as soon as this is released. But in the meantime, to give you a taste of what Saturn's going to be bringing for you beginning this weekend, Saturn in your sign is a major cosmic reset. This is where you're going to have to restructure your whole entire life. This is where you've been already purging a lot with Saturn in the 12th house, letting go, wrapping things up, ending things that no longer serve you, and where you've probably gone through a greater period of solitude and seclusion away from the world in preparation for this reemergence, this cosmic reset, where you're going to restructure who you are, where anything that is not true to who you are on a core level, you're going to have to break away from that. You're going to have to work on letting go of that. And so this is going to be a transit that in the end is very empowering, because you get a lot of clarity and you get rid of a lot of the excess, and you come back to who you are without that conditioning from the outside of who you should be. And so it's a powerful time, and it's a big time for Aquarius. And we'll talk about that a little bit more next week. And then for Pisces, and for Pisces rising, this energy with Mars, Jupiter, and Pluto is happening in your 11th house, which is the house of friends and social networks. So this for Pisces is not going to be the worst energy or the most intense. You're going to have, I think, a better time with this. This could be something that comes up for you, like an opportunity to connect with new friends that comes up really quickly. There could be a really intense situation that brings new people into your life, or a new really important one-on-one connection, especially if you are a Pisces rising sign, with your rising sign near the end degrees of Pisces, anywhere from 25 to 30 degrees. This is going to be impacting you by really empowering you to figure out what you truly want, need, and desire in your relationships, and maybe to jump into a new relationship that is in alignment with your deepest and truest desires on that level. This is going to show you this week who is loyal to you, who you can trust, who you want to stand by you moving into the future. There could be a really intense situation that comes up where you have to stand up for your friends, or your friends stand up for you or stand by you through some sort of intense situation, and you feel like lucky for this, right? You feel empowered because of this. You feel like you have a good crew on your side, and so that could be part of the situation as well. This is a good week actually for socializing for Pisces, but I think a lot of you're going to figure a lot out really quickly when it comes to your friendships this week, and that's going to be experienced, I think, more as a positive thing for Pisces. And then for that Saturn transit into the sign of Aquarius, this is a transit that's going to be lasting for 2.5 years, and I'm going to be getting into greater detail on this in my extended forecast for Saturn in Aquarius, which I'll be releasing later this week. And so if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do, so that way you won't miss this important update. But in the meantime, to give you a taste of what's to come beginning this weekend, Saturn in Aquarius is going to start to transit your 12th house, which this is a transit where almost everyone who experiences this goes through a period where they have to separate themselves from the day-to-day busyness of the normal world. And so you'll either force yourself into seclusion because you're going to want to take time away. You're going to want to break away from the busyness of everyday life. You're going to need a rest, a break to figure things out. But this is also a time where you might be forced through circumstance to spend more time on your own. And that's going to be a really important time period and an important part of the process, because you're going to be really working through and working on letting things go that no longer serve you. You're going to be wrapping up 30 years of karma that's going to come to this conclusion in this head in about 3 years or so, when Saturn moves into Pisces, where you're going to go through the big cosmic reset. So you're cleaning up all the old baggage. So when you get into that reset period, you already have a cleaner slate and a clearer perspective on where you're headed and who you are, and the restructuring portion of that becomes a lot easier. And so this is going to be a period where it's time to start thinking about how you're going to take a break, how you're going to take a step back a little bit. And preparing for that now, I think, is going to be more beneficial than anything else. And so we'll talk about that again in that extended forecast. And so that is my forecast, you guys, for all 12 signs. And so it's a powerful week in the astrology. There's a lot of really intense energy, but again, I think the intensity is more psychological and more like reactionary than anything else. And so if you're able to keep a clear, level head, if you're able to keep a good sense of perspective on the situations that come up in your life this week, then things should move quite smoothly. And this could be a powerful time of moving forward with something that it could just really rapidly progress into something that you might not even realize at this point the potential that you know these situations might hold for you. And so making sure that you're keeping that level head, I think that's going to be key. But I do think that there's a lot of positive potential, and this could be a very empowering week for a lot of people because there's a lot of energy here that you can tap into. And so, yeah, so I hope that you found this week's forecast helpful. If you did, please be sure to share this forecast with your friends, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my weekly forecasts, and like the video. All right, and so I'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye, everyone.